And Sonetta, let me rock out. Let me
We
rock
live,
out.
we live.
Let me
So
rock out.
you
Let me
gonna
rock
rock? We
out.
live, sister. Just relax. We
Okay.
live. I know you want to get it in. I know
Oh
you want to get
yeah.
this in. Do what you do best.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't take a shot at Dr. Amos Wilson
Yeah, we
and don't
live.
they don't
We
expect
live.
a cannon to come back.
All right, hold on.
Oh yeah, uh, Sunday, oh yeah. Welcome to Sonetta Studios. No, it don't get no better than on consciousness info. Sonetta TV 7.
All right, we're gonna keep it like that because it's jumping. I hate when it start jumping. I gotta work with them what's the pixels or something like that. But anyway, family, peace and black power. Welcome to another Sonetta TV House of Consciousness production. You already know what it is. We got Dr. Maat in the building, and the title of this one is called Dr. Maat Responds to Pastor Bennett Disrespect of Dr. Amos Wilson, Blueprint for Black Power. Peace and black power to you, my sister. How you doing?
Peace and black power, brother Sonetta. How are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm good. I just want to ask you, first of all, like a lot of people know who you are already, but for the sake of the new people, Doctor, I always ask all my people this. For the new people that's in the building,
Okay.
tell the people a little bit about yourself. What gives you the qualifications to come up in here that talk about Dr. Ben and all the history that you do? Tell the people about yourself. Where you from? What borough? What city? Go in
What
on that.
city? All right. Well, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I know that everybody just heard about Elijah Cummings passing. He passed last yesterday, actually, and so like that's big news in Baltimore. So anyway, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised in Baltimore. I attended Morgan State University. Well, I matriculated through, of course, Baltimore public school systems. Attended Morgan State University in 1999, graduated in 2003 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I went back to pursue a doctor of engineering. And so I went through this 5 year program. And so, but it took me longer than 5 years, but I got it. But anyway, I ended up graduating in 2013 with the Doctor of Engineering. And I'm currently teaching 4 classes. I teach electric circuits, I teach signals and systems, introduction to electrical engineering, and also circuits lab. I'm currently working on producing or establishing in a engineering education center at my university, and I'm working with several undergraduate students to do that. I teach a total of about 250 students per year. I've been teaching for about 2 years now, going on 3. I also have a company that I formed with my family called Ed Anime Productions. We create educational tools for children. Our flagship project is called Trek. Mel is short for melanin. Trek means journey. So this program is taking you on a journey to understand the history, culture, and achievements of melanated people. So family, if you go to YouTube, just type in Meltrek, Meltrek, and links to our website will pop up. I have 3 children, 3 sons. One son is at Howard University pursuing his degree at the School of Business. My other son, he's working a job and also working with the family business. And I also have a 9 year old. But that's about it, son. That I don't know what else to share with the people.
Okay. I'm getting this right quick.
Oh, but hold on. You said what makes me qualified. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I want to answer that question. What makes
Go
me
ahead.
qualified to talk about Blueprint for Black Power? Well, I before I always tell people that even though I have a PhD, I consider myself a student first. And I've been studying Dr. Amos Wilson's work for the past couple of years. For those of your followers who have been also following me and studying with me, I co-founded a book club called The Resurgence of the African Mind. with Sister Alima Njai. She's the wife of Brother Black Panther from the Maasi warrior clan. And we studied the Blueprint for Black Power for about 8 months the year before last. And if you go to YouTube and you type in Blueprint for Black Power, RAM Book Club, all of our discussions will pop up. We also read The Falsification of African Consciousness. I've also read The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. I've also read Awakening the Genius of the Black Child. I've also read Issues of Manhood in Black and White. So I consider myself a student of Dr. Amos Wilson. And so, of course, Sinette, if someone is going to take a shot at him, I feel compelled to defend him and to defend his work and his legacy.
All right, Dr. Maat. Hey, Brother King Simon, I see you in the building. I want to let you know, yes, that video is going up right after this show, brother. I saw the video. It's going up. I got you, brother. Don't worry about that. I got that. Okay, Dr. Maat, if I recall, maybe a year or 2 years ago, you did a study group on Blueprint for Black Power with a lot of your people, and y'all went through the whole book, yes?
And yes, that's what I was just talking about, the resurgence of the African Mind Book Club. Absolutely. Okay. It took us about 8 weeks to comb through the book. Let's say 8 weeks, I'm sorry, 8 months to comb through the book. The book consists of about 38 chapters, and each Sunday we met for about 2 hours to discuss each chapter. And those discussions are available on YouTube. Again, to access those discussions, just simply type in Blueprint for Black Power, RAM Book Club, and all of those discussions will pop up.
Okay, let's get with it, Dr. Maat. Last week sometime, you heard Pastor Bennett going in, banging, and getting it in. I thought it was a good presentation as far as him breaking down the knowledge and information and what he's doing and what they are doing for their community. I thought it was a good video, but you and a few others seen some errors in there. I would like for you, because you the doctor, and this is what y'all do. You know, the Army Raw Squad, y'all go through the work because it's very important that we feed the people right information for them to grow. You know, Absolutely. So I want to pass this mic on over to you and let you go ahead and do what you do, sister. It's on you.
Okay, so yeah, it was a good presentation. I watched it, and but the presentation was very biased. I feel like the pastor didn't tell the full story. He told half the story, and I applaud him for the half that he told, but he didn't tell the whole story. And so today I'm here to tell the whole story. I was actually offended over a couple of things that he said. He thought, I don't know, he mentioned Richard Allen and Booker T. Washington and this history that he thought he was bringing to the community. But I thought it was very arrogant and ignorant of him to believe that the conscious community did not already know this information. And so anyway, I'll get into that shortly, Sinetta. So let me share my screen. And I want to say, while I'm sharing my screen, peace to everybody under the sound of my voice. Peace to everyone in the chat room. Peace to those who will be watching this in the archives. Peace to the moderators. I want to say peace to Dagger Squad, Armor Raw Squad, and MBK. MBK all the way. Peace to those brothers. Sinetta, let me know if you can see my screen.
All right, I see it is coming up. And also, before she starts, let me let y'all know, too, that the Sinetta TV Cash app does work. My people ain't been looking out for your brother. I don't know what's going on. My people been, cutting your brother short for a minute. Y'all ain't been taking care of your brother. That ain't good, man. And I'm here to take care of you. So the Cash app does work, family. Is there. All right? And make use of it. Support your brother. Go ahead, Dr. Maat. You got the floor.
All right, cool. Is Brother Garfield in the building?
Oh, you know he is. You know that thirsty dude for that knowledge is in the building.
That's right. Dagger Squad's up. Dagger Squad all the way. But all right. So let me, I want to begin by dedicating this rebuttal, this presentation to the great Dr. Amos Wilson. I was highly offended that Pastor Bennett took a shot at our beloved ancestor, Dr. Amos Wilson. Dr. Amos Wilson was an African-American theoretical psychologist, social social theorist. He was a Pan-African thinker, a scholar, an author, and a professor of psychology at the City University of New York. He has a bachelor's degree and he also has a PhD. He worked as a psychologist, a social caseworker, a supervising probation officer, and he also taught at the University of New York for some years and also at the College of Rochelle. Dr. Amos Wilson gave us wonderful works. He gave us the developmental psychology of the Black child. I've read that. He's given us the awakening the natural genius of the Black children. He gave us Black on Black violence. He gave us understanding Black adolescent male violence. He gave us the falsification of African consciousness. He gave us an African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order. And he gave us our Bible. I consider the blueprint for Black power our Bible. All right. So he gave us the blueprint for Black power. The blueprint for Black power, although he passed in 1995, it was published posthumously in 1998 by his good friend and editor, Baba Subabu. I also want to dedicate this response to Dr. Kobe Kambon. Dr. Kobe Kambon just passed about a year ago. He passed on December the 31st, 2018. We also studied his work during the Resurgence of the African Mind book club. He wrote a book called The African Personality in America, an African-Centered Framework. And so we read his book. And if you go to YouTube and you type in the title of that book, -RAM book club, our discussions will pop up. But anyway, I want to also dedicate this presentation to him. He was an educator, a psychologist, a professor of psychology from the psychology department in FAMU, that's Florida A&M University. And he's also a former national president of the Association of Black Psychologists. He has a bachelor's degree and a PhD, and he's published over 60 scholarly articles and has written 5 books, including a textbook that's being used in several psychology and Black study courses in several HBCUs. So these are some of the books that he's written, and I have all 3. Cultural Misorientation, the Greatest Threat to the Survival of the Black Race in the 21st Century, The African Personality in America, an African-Centered Framework. We read this book also in the Resurgence of the African Mind book club. And he also wrote a textbook entitled African Black Psychology in the American Context, an African-Centered Approach. All right, so grab these books, family, if you can. What I adore about the 2 gentlemen that I just showed you, Dr. Amos Wilson and Dr. Kobe Kambon, is that they drove home the point that we cannot be physically free until we are mentally free. Some people may say instead of mentally, spiritually. I think it's all the same. But we cannot be physically free until we are mentally, I should have put / mentally or spiritually free. And in order for us to become mentally free, we must regain our African consciousness. So if you're subscribing to a religion or a spiritual system that is foreign, then you're not operating with an authentic African consciousness or a healthy African consciousness. So I give thanks to our Black psychologists and historians who created a body of work that is devoted to our mental liberation, Ashe. So there are 3 things that I want you guys to take away from my presentation. I want you to take away this, that the benevolent societies were the foundation of the free Black community before the church. So Pastor Bennett, he did a lot of hooping and hollering last week, and he told you that the Black church created all of these societies and they took care of, the widows and the sick and the burials and etc. But what Pastor Bennett failed to tell you, family, is that before the Black church, there were benevolent societies, okay? Before the Black church, there were benevolent societies, which were the foundation of the free Black community. And they took care of their widows, sick, burials, clothing, education, using donations from the community. So it was the benevolent societies that were the foundation of the free Black communities, not the Black church. I also, guys, want you to take away that Christianity was not the driving force behind the actions of our Christian heroes. It was their desire to be free, and it was Black classical Black nationalism. Those were the driving forces behind the actions of our Christian heroes. It had nothing to do with the Bible. It had nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It had nothing to do with Christianity. That may have been their personal beliefs, but the driving force behind what they were doing, establishing benevolent societies, buying land, establishing banks and schools and etc., that was their desire to be free. They were practicing classical Black nationalism, and they were trying to carve out a better life for themselves, their family, and for generations to come. The third takeaway that I want you to have is that to know that non-Christians work to liberate and advance the Black community. You know, he kept saying, we were putting in work. You know, it was painful to listen to, but he was screaming and hollering, and we were putting in work. But he didn't tell you that there were a lot of non-Christians who also work, family, to liberate and advance the Black community. So those are my key takeaways, family. So Pastor Bennett started out with a question. And his question was and by the way, family, these are his original slides. I don't like to put words.
Y'all hear me? Testing 1, 2. Come on in here, doctor. Where you at? Okay, there you go. I don't know. Pastor must have prayed to Jesus. Something happened, doctor.
Sinetta, can you hear me?
I hear you. Do you hear me? No, she don't hear me. Doctor. Yeah, you don't hear me?
Yeah, I don't hear you and I don't see you. And mine says that
I see
it
you.
says
I'm
we're
looking
live.
right at you. I'm looking right at you. And you on
Which
yeah,
one? Which link?
the link that you on. I'm looking right at you. Yeah, you got your left hand to your phone with holding your phone. All right. Go out, come back in. Cause no, we can't hear you. So go out, come back in, and let's see what happens. All right. Okay.
All right, so we're in there. Okay.
Let me hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly clear. Can you hear me?
All right. Testing 1, 2. You hear me?
Yep, I hear you,
All right,
sir.
we on. We back on.
Okay, so what was the part that you guys didn't hear? Like, did they get the takeaway slide?
Just go back one slide.
Okay. So we got through the dedication, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the key takeaways? Let me holler at the people in the chat room side.
Just go back, because just go over it. That's all. Just go back a slide and do what you do.
All right, cool. So the key takeaways from this presentation is: one, benevolent societies were the foundation of the free Black community before the church, and they took care of the widows, sick, burials, clothing, education, using donations from the community. Pastor Bennett wanted you guys to believe that the foundation of the free Black community was the Black church. But what I want you to understand is that before the Black church, there were benevolent societies. My second takeaway is that Christianity was not the driving force behind the actions of our Christian heroes. It was their desire to be free and classical Black nationalism. Those were the driving forces behind the actions of our ancestors, not Christianity, not the Bible, not Jesus Christ. And he kept saying that Christians put in work. They put in work. But what I want the community to understand is that non-Christians also work to liberate to liberate and advance the community. So it wasn't solely Christians that were doing a lot of the work. There were also non-Christians. So Pastor Bennett, his first slide was the question. And he posed this question. He said, is one who is African no longer African if they choose a different system and religion than that which is not inherently African? The first thing that I want to address is his word choose. He said, is one who is African no longer African if they choose? I want Pastor Bennett to realize that we didn't choose a damn thing, Sinetta. Christianity was imposed on our brothers and sisters in West Africa. So we didn't choose anything. We were stripped of our names, our culture, and our religion, and we were forcibly converted to Christianity during the transatlantic slave trade. So that's the first thing I want to address. The second thing I would like to address is African, the term African. African is a term that is used in a social context, as well as many other contexts, as a reference to a place of origin, nativity, or location. African simply means of or belonging to or from the continent of Africa. That's a quick Google search, okay? So being African has nothing to do with religion. So if you do practice a system, let's go back to his question. So if an African person practices a different system and religion than that which is not inherently African, so naturally African or indigenous, right? Or a native of African or indigenously African, they are still African. But the question is, Sinetta, what kind of African are you? That's the question. So if you practice a system that is not African, you are still an African. But the question is, what kind of African are you? So I want to go to the work of Dr. Kobe Kambon to diagnose what kind of African you are. You are an African who suffers from what we call cultural misorientation. In his book, Cultural Misorientation, The Greatest Threat to the Survival of the Black Race in the 21st Century, Dr. Kobe Kambon tells us that cultural misorientation is a cultural-based psychological disorder prevalent in continental and diasporan Africans acquired through the internalization of the European worldview. Okay, so let's break down what worldview means, okay? Because I like to deal with definitions. I want everybody to understand where I'm coming from. In Dr. Kobe Kambon's book, The African Personality in America, he has a beautiful glossary in the back, and he gives us the definition of worldview. So worldview is defined as the conceptual ideological framework derived from a racial group's cosmology, which projects their reality, history, culture, philosophy as the center of the universe. Okay, that's a worldview. That's worldview. Cosmology is defined as the system for organization, experiencing, construing, and describing the structure of reality, the cosmos, the universe, that is indigenous to a racial cultural group. So if you're subscribing or adhering to someone else's cosmology, then you're operating with someone else's worldview. And if you're operating with someone else's worldview, then you're suffering from the cultural-based psychological disorder entitled cultural misorientation. And now Donde Azebo, he tells us that cultural misorientation represents a basic African mental disorder. So you got a mental disorder going on, okay? And it says, as such, serves as the foundation condition of African pathology, from which most other forms of African cultural specific mental disorders derive. So in this work, Dr. Kobe Cambon and other psychologists such as Donde Azebo, they all argue that cultural misorientation is a precursor to a lot of mental disorders that we suffer from today. What are those mental disorders? Let's go. Materialistic depression, alien self disorder, anti-self disorder. Think about the stuff that's going on in our communities, family. Personality identity conflict, individualism, sexual misorientation, reactionary disorders, psychological brainwashing, psychological burnout, oppression, violence, and reaction, self-destruction disorders. Think about it, family. Organic disorders. Here we go, Pastor Bennett. Theological misorientation, the belief in, allegiance to, or practice of theology or religious related ideology that is incongruent with African history and culture. So, brother, if you are practicing, let's go back to your slide. Let's go back to your slide because I don't want to put words in your mouth. So if you are practicing a system and religion that which is not inherently African, then you are suffering from a psychological disorder, theological misorientation. You are also suffering from Jonestown syndrome or theological alienation, which is defined as the cognitive structure of God as a white man, rejection of and alienation from doctrines and practices indigenous cultural religion. So my brother, you said, are you African? You're absolutely African, but you are an African that suffers from cultural misorientation. You asked another question. You asked a few questions on this slide. You said, is there any ancient African system or religion that has remotely done more to progress Africans and minorities since slavery in the United States than the Black church? My rebuttal to that pass is absolutely. And this presentation will show that the principles of West African secret societies were at the core of the benevolent societies which were created by the Black church. You also asked, has the white lie about Christianity caused many in the conscious community to dismiss the African heroism through Christianity? Well, first, Pastor, I want to say that Christianity being a white man's religion is not a white lie. It is a historical fact that Christianity was introduced to West Africans by the Portuguese during the slave trade. And DNA testing proves that African Americans are the descendants of the enslaved West Africans. And there was no African heroism through Christianity. Cut that out. African heroism occurred through their desire to be free. I want to drive that home, brothers and sisters. It had nothing to do with Jesus Christ and the Bible and Christianity, but it had everything to do with their desire to be free. That's what drove African. That was the fuel or the force or the impetus behind African heroism. So then you ask the question, you say, well, do you have, it says, do you hate? And I think that's what you meant to say. It was a typo. You said, do you hate? You asked, do you hate the white man so much that you dismiss the accomplishments of Africans because they held a Christian belief? Absolutely not, Pastor. The conscious community does not dismiss the accomplishments of our ancestors who were Christian, Muslims, or etc. We appreciate, we honor, and we celebrate our ancestors. But what we are concerned with is how these foreign religions de-Africanizes us, which disconnects us from our West African heritage. And see, that de-Africanization also causes a lot of psychopathologies in our community. So that's what the conscious community is concerned with. We love our ancestors. We honor our ancestors. We don't give a damn whether you're Christian, Muslim, or Buddhist, or a Hindu. We appreciate our ancestors. We honor them and we celebrate them. But what we are concerned about is how these systems de-Africanizes us in the psychopathologies that are engendered through that process. That's what we're concerned about, Pastor. Okay, and the last thing you said the Black church and the gospel have historically been the heart and soul that led the liberation of the enslaved African through slavery, Jim Crow, and segregation. Pastor, I don't even know why you mentioned segregation, because anybody who studies history knows that integration was the worst thing that ever happened to us. So we should have stayed segregated. But anyway, you said that they led us through slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, and have released us into the rim. More than anything else, I couldn't quite read behind Sinetta. So my rebuttal to that, sir, is that the church was not the heart and soul that led the liberation of the enslaved African through slavery, Jim Crow, and segregation. Other institutions were involved, Pastor, cut it out. Other institutions were involved. However, it appeared that the church led the way because members of these institutions were also members of the Black church. Family, you can go to Blueprint for Black Power, page 55, 57, where Dr. Amos Wilson talks about these different institutions. So Sinetta, bear with me. Let me stop sharing my screen. Bear with me right now, Sinetta. See, the pastor put up a lot of stuff. And he didn't read half the stuff that he showed you guys. I read Blueprint for Black Power. So everything that I'm telling you, I studied on my own. On page 557, Dr. Amos Wilson says, Black churches, mutual aid societies, and the fraternal lodges contributed to the formation of the Black self-help tradition and to the establishment of an economic ethos of uplift for the race that emphasized the following virtues and moral values: industry, thrift, discipline, sobriety, and long-term sublimation rather than immediate gratification. Of these three institutions, Black churches led in spreading this ethic of economic rationality among the newly freed masses during the Reconstruction period, partly because they were the most inclusive community institutions, and their membership often included members from both mutual aid society and lodges. So cut it out, Pastor. Cut it out. It wasn't just the Black church just leading the way. We got to tell the people the truth. So let me get back to sharing my slides. Okay, he went on to say that the Black Christian church and its leaders, they were the first and the most powerful place and of refuge and freedom and economic, educational, and social empowerment for the liberation of enslaved Africans. I already addressed this, family, when I spoke about the benevolent societies and how they were established prior to the Black church, and we'll get into some of that a little bit later. So then he banged on the Blueprint for Black Power. Sinetta, can you play his clip so we can let him speak for himself?
But the blueprint for Black Power is about 400 years late. It's 400 years late. It was done in 1998. It didn't put that work in. It wasn't there to put that work in that moved us forward.
What you say?
No, keep going. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Replay it, Sinetta.
But the blueprint for Black Power is about 400 years late. It's 400 years late. It was done in 1998. It didn't put that work in. It wasn't there to put that work in that moved us forward. It's here now. If you want to read it and go with it, let it change your life. But we had another belief and book before that we moved off of. That's facts. Do y'all know who these people are? Right, do we tell this history?
Stop that, Sinetta. We don't need to keep going. So he banged on the Blueprint for Black Power. He said that it was 400 years late. Well, brother, Pastor Bennett, did you read the title of the book? It says Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and economic imperative for the 21st century. So what do you mean it was 400 years late, brother? The Blueprint for Black Power was written to teach Black people how to get power in this century, my brother. So of course it wasn't back then. But even the book that they had back then wasn't the motivation behind what they were doing. So Pastor Bennett doesn't understand, family, that Black power is an ideology. It's a movement, okay? And Black power simply means the ability for Black power to define, develop, and defend what is in the interest of Black people. The Bible was not the motivation behind the actions of our ancestors. Freedom in Black power was. It wasn't the Bible. It wasn't Jesus Christ. It wasn't Christianity that inspired them to go after their freedom. It was Black empowerment. So they strive for Black power through unity, organization, and self-reliance. And the Blueprint for Black Power teaches people how to obtain, teaches Black people how to obtain Black power today. Pastor, all you had to do was read the title. But we know you don't have the book. You showed the book. You probably went on Amazon and copied and pasted a picture of it and threw it in your presentation. But we know you clearly didn't read the book, because if you did read the book, you would understand that this was an imperative for today, not for then. And even back then, the Bible didn't teach them how to go after Black power. So cut it out, Pastor. Dr. Amos Wilson tells us this. He says that the white man oppresses African people because he possesses the power to do so. The Black man is oppressed because he has not developed the power to prevent his oppression. His oppression will end when when the power of his oppressor is countered by his own power. So he says that the Black man and the African race must study power, its sources, its acquisition, its increase, its preservation, and its application to the successful achievement of his liberation from white oppression, and to enhance his autonomous quality of life. So that's why the Blueprint for Black Power was written, to get us out of our oppressive state. So the Blueprint for Black Power is my Bible, and it should be the Bible of every Black person in America and throughout the diaspora, right? And even in Africa. This should be our Bible, family, the Blueprint for Black Power, because we continue to get victimized because we don't have the power to not be victimized, okay? And that's what Dr. Amos realized. And so anyway, he wrote the Blueprint for Black Power. He passed in 1995. It was published in 1998 posthumously by Baba Sababu, whom I talk to regularly. And it consists of 31 chapters devoted to teaching Black people how to obtain power. And I put right here, this third bullet, it says cost approximately to produce. When I spoke to Sababu, he told me that Dr. Amos Wilson and their organization, hold on, let me look at the publishing company. Right here is African World Info Systems. That was the book publishing company that Dr. Amos Wilson started with his team. And he said that they spent thousands of dollars to conduct the research that went into the production of the Blueprint for Black Power. So, Pastor, I know that you showed 2 books that you self-published and you put on Amazon, but I'm pretty sure you didn't spend thousands of dollars in research to put those books together. Anyway, in the Blueprint for Black Power in chapter 23, Dr. Amos Wilson talks about the Black church. And so it was very arrogant and ignorant for you to believe that the conscious community didn't know about Richard Allen or the work of Booker T. Washington or the Benevolent Society or the Mutual Aid Society. Dr. Amos Wilson has an entire chapter devoted to this history. And it's entitled The Black Church, Is It the Key to the Black Economic Empowerment? So we already knew about Richard Allen and the AME Church. We knew about Booker T. Washington and the Tuskegee University. We already knew about those things, Pastor. So I thought it was very arrogant and ignorant of you to assume that people in the conscious community did not know this history. This history was published in 1998 by Dr. Amos Wilson. Just read the book, Pastor. Read the book. So the pastor went on to show us pictures of the AME Church and Richard Allen. He kept on saying, "Do you know who this is?" Remember, he was yelling and screaming, Sinetta, "Do you know who this is?" And people in the comments section and myself, we were cracking up because, I mean, this isn't new to us, Pastor. We know about Richard Allen and the AME Church, okay? we know that Richard Allen was a preacher and an educator, and it says blah, 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 blah. He started the Free African Society. It says it's a non-denominational, religious mutual aid society dedicated to helping the community. And you told us that W.E.B. Du Bois, he applauded the Free African Society. He called it the first wavering step of a people toward organized social life. But Pastor, I want you to notice that the first word in the title is free, not Christian. Christian is not found in the title at all, because Christianity was not the impetus behind the society. Freedom was. That's why it's called the Free African Society. The next word is African. Our ancestors identified as African first, not as Christian. So they had a race first mentality, family. And they showed this because they put African in a lot of the names of their organizations and institutions. They established the African Union Society in 1780, the Free African Society in 1787, the New York African Society of Mutual Relief in 1808, and finally, the African Benevolent Society in 1827, this is backwards, family, the African Methodist Society, Methodist Episcopal in 1816, and the African Civilization Society in 1858. So they put African, family in a lot of the organizations and institutions that they established. But I want you to take note of this, family. He said it was the church. It was the AME church. The Black church was the foundation of everything. But look at the dates, family. Look at the years. The AME church was established in 1816. But the organizations, the African Union Society, the Free African Society, the New York African Society for Mutual Relief, all of those organizations, family, were established prior to the AME church. So it wasn't the church that was the foundation. It was the benevolent societies that were the foundation, which were the foundation of the free Black community, not the church.
Like the video, thumb up the video.
But I want to drop home, family, that the African Free Society wasn't about Christianity. It was about organization and Black empowerment. It was formed to solve our problems, family. It had nothing to do with Christianity at all. Okay. And so I'm gonna prove that. I'm gonna prove it. So anyway, Pastor Bennett went on to show you this. He said the members gave $1 a month to fund programs of social and economic needs. They helped pay for burial costs of families, funded widows, paid for tuition of kids, aided the sick, taught trades, etc. He said it also gave moral discipline of acquiring good behavior, not abusing alcohol, paid dues, etc. It gave rise to more than 100 similar African-American mutual aid societies in Philadelphia region by 1838. So what he did, family, was he cut and paste articles from the preamble of the Free African Society. But Pastor, you were being a little bit disingenuous. Why didn't you show the people that in their preamble, it says that the society should be formed without regard to religious tenets, provided the persons lived an orderly and sober life in order to support one another in sickness and for the benefit of their widows and fatherless children. But take note, family, without regard to religious tenets. So what he did was he cut and paste, the articles from the preamble, and he told you all these wonderful things that he did, and he prided himself in telling you that the Free African Society was established or created by Richard Allen. But he didn't tell you that even in the daggone preamble, they tell you that the society should be formed without regard to religious tenets. So family, this wasn't about religion at all. This was about Black people wanting to be free and wanting to carve out a better life for themselves, for their families, and for generations to come. It had nothing to do with Christianity, family. In fact, the organization, even though it was found by someone that was Christian, he said the society was formed without regard to religious tenets. So it was disingenuous, Pastor, for you to show them this slide and didn't give them the full preamble of the Free African Society. And family, all you have to do is Google it, pbs.org, publish the preamble. So I encourage all of you guys to just read the preamble for yourself. don't look at Pastor Bennett's cut and paste job slide or cut and paste presentation that he did on it. Go to pbs.org and just read the preamble for yourself, and you'll see, family, that the Free African Society was formed without regard to religious tenets. So it had nothing to do with Christianity. And even in the article, Sinetta, they talk about different things, and he was correct. I'm looking at it now, family. Let me see. It says no drunkard or disorderly person shall be admitted as a member. It talked about paying a monthly subscription. They talked about meeting every month. And right here, family, he says, we apprehended to be just and reasonable that a surviving widow of a deceased member should enjoy the benefit of this society. So they took care of their widows. Right here, it says we apprehended necessary that the children of our deceased members are under the care of the society. So they took care of the widows. They took care of the children. Okay, so let's go here. I want you to understand, family, that West African secret societies were at the core of these benevolent societies. I'm going to say that again. West African secret societies were at the core of these benevolent societies. So let's read. And my source is coming from the Massachusetts Review, volume 20, number 3. It was published in 1979. So it says this: because more than half the slaves landed in America were probably brought in a 50-year span from 1716 to 1810, many of the benevolent societies, so hold up, family, when we talk about the benevolent societies, I want to be clear, we're talking about the African Union Society, the Free African Society, the New York African Society for Mutual Relief. We're talking about all these societies, and I'm going to prove to you right now that they were based on West African secret societies. So anyway, because more than half the slaves landed in America were probably brought in a 50-year span from 1760 to 1810, many of the benevolent society members were either born in Africa or were only a generation removed from the continent. So then they give an example of Newport Gardner, who was a prominent member of the African Union Society. But I'm not going to read all of this, family. You guys can go back to this presentation, pause it, and read it on your own. But I'm going to go down here to the second arrow where it says, in Africa, social and political organization was based on a combination of segments, each self-contained but independent. These segments, generally called secret societies, controlled their members' daily lives. F.W. Butt Thompson has delineated 3 types of secret societies in West Africa, many of which existed during the time of the slave trade. So wait a minute, Sinetta. Was it the Black church? Was it Christianity at the core? No, it was West African secret societies. Many of them existed during the time of the slave trade. The mystic and religious societies included priests and holy men who supervised religious practices in their area. The democratic and patriotic societies contain economic, social, and political groups. Black benevolent societies more closely resemble these associations. What associations are we talking about, family? West African associations. There were also the subversive and criminal societies, which engaged in a manifesto types of activity. Some of these functions overlap, but the first 2 groups served as extensions of traditional authority to achieve goals set by the particular social order. In this, these associations were more prescriptive than voluntary. The Poirot of Sierra Leone was a powerful secret society with origins before the 15th century that intricately linked social, political, and economic aspects of its members' lives. Nigeria's Igbo recognized mutual aid as the moral obligation, while the Gave in the Homie existed primarily to supply adequate financial aid for burial expenses of close relatives. Funerals characterized an extremely important element of African society. The African cosmology held that life must have both a good beginning and a proper ending. The frame of reference, especially the latter, in which ancestors became a part of the spiritual universe and had some impact on their descendants' lives, form a key component of Afro-American worldview. The essential ingredient of most Black benevolent societies was the burial feature. Wait a minute, let's go back to Pastor Bennett's slide. Let's go back. Help pay for burial costs of families, funded widows. All right, let me get back. African secret and mutual aid societies also stress moral training and good conduct, which was another important attribute of early Black voluntary associations. The free Black benevolent societies resemble both the scope of African secret societies and the communal nature of African life. It could be that because of their communal experience, Africans in the New World had a greater tendency toward mutual cooperation. Moreover, their well-ordered and hierarchical social systems might have provided a greater propensity for organization. They were, however, fundamental differences, even though Africans brought this cultural baggage with them. In America, free Blacks confronted a situation that was qualitatively different from conditions in Africa. They could not govern each other's total existence through benevolent societies because they lacked the ascriptive powers present at home, whereas ascribed status was requisite in pre-industrial society. It broke down in an industrial order. Free Blacks were therefore compelled to rely on voluntary associations to bring some stability to their lives in a hostile environment. So family, he wanted you to believe that the Bible and Jesus and Christianity was at the core of these different societies, but it wasn't, family. At the core of these societies were West African secret societies. Another thing, family, I want to bring to your attention, and this comes from the same source. It says, along with similar, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm just going to read what's in between these black arrows. Along lines similar to the African Union Society, the Benevolent Society quickly became the most prevalent form of organization for free Blacks. The first annual report of the American Moral Reform Society, established in 1836 by free Blacks, says this: to extend the principles of universal peace and goodwill to all mankind by promoting sound morality, concluded that benevolent societies were the most widespread type of association among the free Afro-Americans in the 5 states surveyed. Wait a minute, I want to say it again. Benevolent societies, not the church, were the most widespread type of association among free African Americans in the 5 states surveyed. These voluntary associations outstripped even the church as the predominant structure among free Blacks. So family, it wasn't the church that was the predominant structure among free Blacks. It was the benevolent societies. Look at this last line again. These voluntary associations outstripped even the church as the predominant structure among the free Blacks. So family, don't buy into what Pastor Bennett was talking about. It was the Black church at the core. It was the Black church. It was Jesus. It was the Bible. It wasn't, family. It was the benevolent societies who were the foundation of the free Black community. And these benevolent societies were based on what? West African secret societies. Next, I want to address this. Pastor Bennett brought up W.E.B. Du Bois, and he told you that W.E.B. Du Bois applauded the Free African Society. But what Pastor Bennett did not tell you is that W.E.B. Du Bois was an atheist. I mean, he was agnostic. And Pastor Bennett also didn't tell you that W.E.B. Du Bois praised the Free Society, but he criticized the Black church. Let's go. Let's see what Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois had to say about the Black church. He says, although he used some religious metaphor and expressions in some of his writing, W.E.B. Du Bois called himself a free thinker. On Christianity, a posthumously published essay, Du Bois critiqued the Black church. The theology of the average colored church is basing itself far too much upon hell and damnation, upon an attempt to scare people into being decent and threatening them with the terrors of death and punishment. We are still trained to believe a good deal that is simply, he called it childish theology. He called the biblical text, he said it's childish theology. He says the outward and visible punishment of every wrong deed that men do, the repeated declaration that anything can be gotten by anyone at any time by prayer. He said that's ridiculous. So he called it childish theology. And he also said it was ridiculous to think that anything can be gotten by anyone at any time by prayer. W.E.B. Du Bois goes on to say this, and I'm going to read this, family, right here. He said, my morals were sound, even a bit puritanic, but when a hidebound old deacon inveighed against dancing, I rebelled. By the time of graduation, I was still a believer in Orthodox religion, but had strong questions which were encouraged at Harvard. Also, he went to school, family. He went to school and then he started questioning. So he says, in Germany, I became a free thinker. And when I came to teach at an Orthodox Methodist Negro school, I was soon regarded with suspicion, especially when I refused to lead the students in public prayer. When I became head of a department in Atlanta, the engagement was held up because, again, I balked at leading in prayer. So he didn't even want to lead the prayer. He said, I flatly refused again to join any church or sign any church creed. From my 30th year on, I have increasingly regarded the church as an institution which defended the evils of slavery, color caste, exploitation of labor, and war. I think the greatest gift of the Soviet Union was modern civilization was the dethronement of clergy and the refusal to let religion be taught in public schools. Pastor Bennett, why didn't you tell the people that when you brought up W.E.B. Du Bois? Why didn't you tell him? Why didn't you tell the people that he was agnostic? Why didn't you tell him how he criticized Christianity and called it childish theology and said that it was ridiculous for anyone to think that anything could be gotten by anyone at time during prayer? Why didn't you tell the people this, Pastor Bennett? Now, so W.E.B. Du Bois, we know that he was the first African-American to earn a PhD. He co-founded the NAACP. He wrote a bunch of essays. He produced Souls of Black Folks, right? They say he adamantly opposed the idea of biological white superiority, and vocally supported women's rights. He was a huge proponent of Pan-Africanism, and he helped to organize several Pan-African congresses to free African colonies from European powers. So this man wasn't a Christian, but he put in work, Pastor Bennett, in your words, he put in work. I went to study, family. When I went over to Ghana, family, back in May, I spent 2 weeks there, and I went to the W.E.B. Du Bois Memorial Center. I went there. So what happened was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who was the president of Ghana at that time, well, back in the day, he gave W.E.B. Du Bois a home and wanted him to work on what's called the Africana Encyclopedia. And I actually have a copy of the Africana Encyclopedia, Volume 1, in my library, but it was finished posthumously, family. But anyway, so W.E.B. Du Bois, he was laid to rest there. So he retired in Ghana. So I had an opportunity, family, back in May to visit his home, which was turned into a museum. That's me, family, standing there in front of his home and his statue. You see my son, Isaiah, right here with his red, black, and green on in front of the home of W.E.B. Du Bois. And this is the mausoleum that he's buried in. And the mausoleum sits to the right of his home. So I'm not an armchair scholar, family. I actually go places and do the research. I do the field work, family. Pastor Bennett wanted to Google a bunch of stuff and show you a bunch of stuff that he had no idea of. He didn't know what he was talking about. Anyway, so Pastor Bennett went on to talk about the AME Church. He talked about the Negro Movement Convention. And then he brought up the Freedom Journal. And he said that the Freedom Journal was the first African-American owned and operated newspaper published by the United States. And he started yelling. It was founded by Reverend Peter Williams Jr. He started yelling, right? And then he said that the paper encouraged freedom, literacy, education, and resisted those who prompted slavery. Pastor Bennett, again, Notice that the first word in the title was free, not Christian. I challenge Pastor Bennett to find one article published by the Freedom Journal that speaks about Christianity, the Bible, or Jesus. Family, notice in his own slides that he states that the Freedom Journal, let's go back to his own slides. He said that the paper encouraged freedom, literacy, education, and resisted those who promoted slavery. He says that in his own slides, family. So the purpose of the Freedom's Journal was to provide Black people with a forum to express their views on issues they faced during that time. It was not about spreading the gospel. So Pastor, cut it out. But let me help you out, Pastor. I gave you a challenge to find one article. Well, let me help you out, Pastor. You can go here. This is a link, family. www.wisconsininhistory.org. Okay. This website contains all 103 issues of the Freedom Journals. All 103 issues of the Freedom's Journal. Okay. All of them have been digitized and posted on this website. Let me click on the website, family, so you can see it. I'm gonna click on the website so you can see it, family. So if you click on the link and you go to this website, and I can put this link in the chat, it's all right here, family. Look at this. Freedom Journals, the first U.S. African American owned newspaper. So you go to this link, family, and here are all the volumes and numbers, and you can read through them and the dates that they were published, right? You see they had a lot of volumes, right? You can go right here, family, and click on, you can go right there and click on the link. And so, Pastor Bennett, I challenge you to find one article published by the Freedom Journal that speaks about Christianity, the Bible, or Jesus. In fact, family, the subjects contained in the journal were as such. They talked about current events of the day with regional and national and international information. It contained editorials disclaiming slavery, lynching, and other injustices. It contained biographies of prominent African Americans, vital record listings of births, deaths, and marriages in the African American New York community. So that was the subject, family. It had nothing to do with Christianity. It was about freedom. It was about having a platform to express our views, just like Brother Sinetta has a platform for us to come on and have these types of discussions. It was the same thing, family. And then he showed you Carver, George Washington Carver, and he started talking about Arm and Raw Squad. He was yelling, "Oh, the Arm and Raw Squad. Why aren't you telling people that George Washington Carver was a Christian?" I don't understand the point, Pastor Bennett. I mean, I'm an engineer, so I'm a scientist, and I'm a mathematician, and I use science and math to solve problems. George Washington Carver, he was also a scientist, and he was a Christian, and I'm not. But guess what, Pastor Bennett? I work at a university with people who are Christians, people who are Muslims, people who are non-Christians, non-Muslims, and they are scientists, they're engineers, they're mathematicians. So no one's saying, Pastor, that you have to give up your personal beliefs to practice science and math. You know, science and math are just tools that we use to solve problems. That's it. So no one's saying that you have to give up your personal beliefs to be a scientist. So I didn't understand what your point was, Pastor. So then he showed us, family, a slide of O.W. Gurley, the brother who purchased 40 acres just to sell to Blacks, and how that was, the start of Black Wall Street. He showed that. He showed the silent march that took place in 1917. And he said that, they called on the Black church and different reverends and bishops who were involved in this march. And I'm not dismissing, we don't dismiss that. We love this fact. We love that, Pastor. We appreciate what our ancestors did. But stop acting like, they weren't indoctrinated at the end of the day. They were just as indoctrinated as we are today, Pastor. So cut it out. So then Pastor Bennett showed you guys this slide. He showed you Frederick Douglass, and he started yelling. Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner. And he started yelling and screaming, and he was saying that they were all Christians. But Pastor Bennett, are they the same? Now you're saying they were Christians, but please tell the Christians of yesterday are not the Christians of today. I'm going to say that again. They were Christians, but the Christians of yesterday are not the same as the Christians of today. Let's go, Pastor. Let's go, Pastor. Family, you remember this case? You remember this case right here, family? You remember this case right here? This was Amy Geiger. Remember she shot our brother, Botham Jean? She shot our brother, Botham Jean. He was in his apartment. I think they said he was eating. Hold up, Sinetta. Can the people see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. We all see it.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So, family, you know who this is. You see to the left, this is the mugshot of Amy Geiger. Remember, she was a police officer who shot our brother, Botham John, or Botham Jean. Some people are saying Jean, some people are saying John. She shot this brother. He was in his apartment. And I believe they said he was sitting on the couch eating a bowl of cereal. And she came in and she claimed she thought that she was in the wrong apartment. And she shot our brother. And instead of giving him CPR, she got on the phone and she started texting her married lover and all of that. And then she called 911, right? And you know what happened, Sinetta, in that courtroom? Let's look at the new Christians. Let's look at the Christians today. Botham John's brother asked the judge if he could have permission, Sinetta, to hug the white devil that murdered his brother. And then he said, he talked about being a Christian and he had to forgive her. So then you had a judge. Look at the judge down the bottom, Sinetta. The judge, she gave her a hug, and I've never seen this. Even Europeans, when I was watching different news clips, a lot of commentators, and I'm talking about European commentators, they said they've never seen anything like this in history, Sinetta, where the judge gets down off the bench and hugs the convicted murderer. The judge even gave her a Bible. Let's go back to the pastor slide. Do you think that, can you show me, Pastor Bennett, a picture of Nat Turner hugging these white devils? Show me a picture of Harriet Tubman hugging these white devils. Show me a picture of Marcus Garvey hugging these white devils. Show me one picture. Hell, Nat Turner led the revolt, and I think they said he killed about 60 of them. So stop acting like the Christians of yesterday are the same Christians today. Let's go. You family, do you remember this incident right here? Walter Scott, he was shot in the back by Officer Michael. I think his name was Slagger. Do you remember him? Well, let's see what happened, family. It says the mother of Walter Scott, an unarmed man who was gunned down by a South Carolina police officer that same year, told CNN Anderson Cooper that she felt forgiveness in my heart. This is Miss Judy Scott. This is the mother of Walter Scott, who was shot down. And her Christian belief told her that she has to forgive her enemy, love her enemy, and pray for her enemy. Stop acting like, Pastor, these are the same Christians now. Stop acting like that. These aren't the same Christians. Let's go here, family. Let's go here, family. Dylan Roof. It says that Dylan Roof is an American white supremacist and mass murderer convicted for perpetuating the Charleston church shooting on June 17th, 2015 in the U.S. state of South Carolina. Family, when I did a quick Google search, family, all you find is I forgive you. Look at this. I forgive you. Relatives of Charleston church shooting victims.
You killing this shit right here, we've been trying to tell the pastor this for a minute. I'm sorry, but go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off. You going in on this shit.
All right, but look, when you Google it, look at the Washington Post, abcnews.com. This was just a few. All of the relatives, different people. Look at this. Charleston victim's mother tells Dylan Roof, I forgive you. I forgive you. This is what they say. And I want Black folks to understand that when we do stuff like this, Sinetta, on TV, and we keep telling the people who are victimizing us that we forgive them and that we love them, they're going to keep on victimizing you. Because at the end of the day, you train people on how to treat you. You teach people on how to treat you. So if you allow your open enemy to continue victimizing you and you keep hugging them and saying you forgive them, it's going to continue. Just like the sister in Dallas, Texas, I believe, just got murdered in her home. So it keeps on happening because we keep on forgiving. And that is what the Christian church is doing to the Black community. It's making us very weak and it's making us very exploitative.
You sure you ain't watched my video, Dr. Maat?
I ain't,
Because I did a video on that. Is the church making us weak and
It's making us weak,
pitiful?
Sinetta. Yeah, so he gotta, the pastor gotta cut it out. The pastor gotta cut it out and stop showing pictures of our warriors and acting like this is what the church is doing today. Name a pastor that went and bust a gun when all of this stuff happened. Nat Turner was out there. Name a pastor that was out there. And I ain't talking about out there praying and marching. I'm talking about a pastor that was ready to go to war. Name one. You can't. You can't.
I could name a few.
That bust a gun, Sinetta?
Yep.
Okay, well, we got to talk about that. I'm talking about that bust a gun in 2019.
The Deacons of Defense.
Oh, they was busting guns?
They was practicing war. They was practicing.
Okay, did they take
and all that in the backyard?
Did they take in their backyard? Did they take any heads? Did they take any heads?
No, it didn't have to, it didn't come to that level with them.
Oh, it didn't come to that level.
But they was backing them. They was backing them up though.
Okay, so we had Trayvon. So we had Trayvon
some Black
Martin.
Panther stuff, self-defense.
They were. So hold on, Sinetta. Let me name some folks since you brought up that. So you said they didn't take any heads, but they were backing them up. Hold on, Sinetta. Let me call some names right now. Let me call some names. Philando Castile. Did anyone bust a head for Philando Castile, Sinetta? Those pastors who were training? What about Terrence Crutcher? What about Sandra Bland? What about Eric Garner? What about Michael Brown? What about Rakia
No, doctor. That was way before their time. That's what I'm saying. They wasn't there for that.
I'm talking about right now, Sinetta.
I got you. Go ahead. Go in.
In 2019, name a pastor that bust a gun for Philando Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Sandra Bland, Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Rakia Boyd, Sean Bell, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Dan Roy Henry, Oscar Grant, Ayanna Jones, Amadou Diallo, Trayvon Martin, Jonathan Farrell, Alton Sterling, Betty Jones, Kevin Matthew, Clint Elliott, Leroy Browning, Roy Nelson, Nathaniel Pickett. I got a list, Sinetta.
Like the video. Thumb up
I have
the video.
a list. Stop playing. Stop acting like they're the Christians of yesterday or the same Christians today. They're not. So then Pastor Bennett wanted to show us a slide of the UNIA, Black Moses, Black Star. He talked about the UNIA and all of their different endeavors. He talked about the Black Star Line Shipping Company. He talked about the Negro World newspaper. He mentioned that Marcus Garvey was affectionately called Black Moses. But notice everything is black, right? Black Moses, Black Star, Negro World, right? So then he brought up that Marcus Garvey believed in God, so he was a Christian. He believed in Jesus, so he brought that up. But notice, family, he built the UNIA based on identity and Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism. So Christianity was his personal belief. These were his personal beliefs. But everything he did, family, was based on Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. So, Pastor, who cares that he personally believed in God and Jesus? That wasn't the driving force behind his actions. The driving forces behind Marcus Garvey's actions were Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. So, in fact, family, if you go to biography.com, you'll notice that when they talk about Marcus Garvey, it says Marcus Garvey was a proponent of Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism movements. It doesn't talk about him being a Christian. No one cares. What propelled him was Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. So he brought that up, family. But I thought it was funny when he mentioned the Negro World to you. And so he said, he started the Negro World. But what he didn't talk about was Hubert Harrison. Hubert Harrison was an atheist. He was a West Indian American writer, orator, educator, critic, and race and class conscious political activist and radical internationalist. And he was based in Harlem, New York. This brother was an atheist. But hold on, family. It says right here in January 1920, Harrison became principal editor of the Negro World. So he mentioned the Negro World to you, and he talked about how Marcus Garvey was a principal, but he doesn't talk about how Marcus Garvey was also working with people who were atheists. So everybody wasn't a Christian involved in the liberation movement, Pastor. So it says right here in January 1920, Harrison became principal editor of the Negro World. So it says over the next 8 months, he developed it, talking about the Negro World, into the leading race conscious, radical, and literary publication of the day. So this publication had nothing to do with the Bible. It had nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It had nothing to do with Christianity. It had everything to do with race conscious, radical, and literary publication. I'm sorry, and literacy. I'm sorry. So Harrison, I'm sorry, that should say family, Hubert Harrison. So that's a mistake on my end. Hubert Harrison continued to write for the Negro World into 1922. So he was actually the principal editor of the Negro World that Pastor Bennett was hooping and hollering about on this daggone slide. So Garvey wasn't just working with Christians, he was also working with atheists, because at the end of the day, these people had a race-first mentality. They didn't care whether you were a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Hindu. They didn't give a damn what you were. What they were trying to do was organize. They were trying to organize, they were trying to get land, and they were trying to establish themselves. They were trying to operate here as a nation within a nation. And then remember, family, there was a big argument. Some people wanted to stay here and build, and other people said, wait a minute, we should go back to Africa. So that was like the issue going on back then. But what I want to drive home, family, that it wasn't about religion at all. None of this stuff was based, none of the driving force wasn't religion. It wasn't Christianity. It wasn't the Bible. It wasn't Jesus. It was their desire to get free. I want to say, get free or die trying. That was their motto. Let's get free or die trying. So then Pastor Bennett started talking about Booker T. Washington and the Tuskegee University. He mentioned that Booker T. Washington was a Christian, and he quoted from the book Up From Slavery. And we know this, Pastor. Again, this stuff is mentioned in the Blueprint for Black Power. Family, all you got to do is go to page. Let me see what the page is, family. It's in chapter 23, and chapter 23 starts on page 555. He also mentioned Dr. Washington Carver. I already addressed this. He said that HBCUs birthed and funded by the church. I'm not doubting this, Pastor, and taking this away from anybody. He also mentioned Thurgood Marshall. He said that, he was the first African American on the Supreme Court. And he was also a Christian. I'm not doubting that, Pastor. But what I want the family to understand is that Christianity was not the driving force behind their action. Freedom and empowerment were, family.
Speak your speech, nigga.
You know what, Sinetta? You know what, Sinetta?
Speak your speech.
So look, family, I just want to show you some organizations that were also operating then, some organizations and also people who were non-Christian. Paul Robeson was an atheist, but people don't talk about that. And he did a lot for the Black community. You also had the African Blood Brotherhood. Look them up. And we already know down the bottom. We know who they are, family. You had the Black Panther Party. This was a socialist party. This wasn't a Christian party. And they had over 62 programs that they implemented. So, Pastor, stop acting like Christians were the only people putting in work. Non-Christians put in work too. So then you started at the end of your presentation, you showed yourself giving a check to somebody, and you were feeding the homeless, and you started yelling and screaming. You said, what is Black Power doing today? What are the Black Power groups doing today? Well, let me show you, Pastor. Get this book, family, right here. We Are an African People. It has a list of all of the African-centered schools across the United States. So, Pastor, we have schools. Let's look at some other schools. Walimo Baruti, I call him Baba Baruti. Baba Baruti and his wife, they started the Akobin Institute down in Atlanta, Georgia, which is an independent African-centered full-time and after-school homeschooling and tutorial program for middle and high schoolers. Let's look at Brother Marcus Klein, who's out in Chicago, right? He established the Nkrumah, I think along with his wife, the Nkrumah International Academy, and also the School of Literacy. He has a school in Chicago and also a school in Atlanta. And I was told, family, that there are plans for him to bring a school to Baltimore. Let's look at Baba Amin out there in Texas. Baba Amin is in Texas with the Aruhu Academy. And my mistake, family, I was typing fast, so I spelled academy wrong. So my mistake. All right. But Baba Amin is out there in Texas with the Aruhu Academy. Let me show you what we're doing down here in Baltimore, family. At the top left corner right here, this is Brother Jabari Nator. He was the co-founder of an organization in Baltimore called Reality Speaks. And so Reality Speaks since the 90s have been bringing people in to speak to us. Before you all knew of Umar Johnson, we saw Umar Johnson 20 years ago in Baltimore, before Umar Johnson became Umar Johnson. He brought Dr. Francis Cress Welsing here. He brought Dick Gregory here. I was able to meet Baba Dick Gregory because of Brother Jabari. He brought Dr. Claude Anderson here a few times. He brought Dr. Africa here a few times. And he also started a business called the Conscious Head Barbershop.
You should have said we seen Dr. Umar on the couch of House of Consciousness before anywhere.
You know what, Sinetta? Did you really cut my presentation to plug that? Did you really cut my presentation? Don't be plugging it inside that. Let me finish my presentation. So anyway, he started the Conscious Heads Barbershop, which is a business located in East Baltimore. He employs a lot of Baltimore youth. And not only does he employ a lot of Baltimore youth, he started a barbering school there. So he's giving our youth the skill to become their own bosses. So that's Brother Jabari Nator. Top right corner, you have the brothers PLM, the Pan-African Liberation Movement. These brothers have a school called the Watoto Development Center in West Baltimore. And they also founded a cafe called the Grub Factory Vegan Specialty Cafe. These brothers to the right, this is brother, we call him Baba Imhotep. And then we have Baba Haru, and I always forget this other brother's name. So please, PLM, don't kill me. I always forget his name. You got Baba Haru and Baba Imhotep. But these brothers started PLM. They have a school, and they also have a vegan specialty cafe, which has hired dozens of young black teenagers. In the bottom right corner, you're looking at the owner of Terra Cafe. Terra Cafe is located in East Baltimore. He's hired a lot of young black people in Baltimore. And down in the bottom right, you know who that is, Sinetta? Who's that, Sinetta? Who's that, Sinetta? Down at the bottom.
I can't see. I can't
see. That's PFK Boom and Big Wolf, 300 Gangsters. Those brothers. Okay.
Yeah.
Those brothers work closely with the Nation of Islam, and they feed the homeless. They're always down. They lobby. They feed the homeless. They also have a van service that transports families to prisons. They have a prison hotline for inmates who are trying to call home, but they don't have money on their books, and so they connect inmates who are inside with their family out here. So they do a lot in the community. Let's go to Jackson, Mississippi, guys. Oh, it's not going to let me open it? Is it going to let me open it? Yes. Okay, let's go to Jackson, Mississippi. And I can put this link in the chat for you guys. This is called the Jackson Kush Plan. Actually, if you Google the Jackson Kush Plan, this PDF will pop up. So you have a lot of organizations. Look at this. People who are non-Christian doing the work. So Black Power isn't dead, family. Black Power is alive and well, family. They're taking over in Jackson, Mississippi. They're taking over, look at this, the economics. They're taking over the economics. And look at this, in the politics. Right now, family, right now, in 2019, right now. Let me click on another link. And I can put this link in the chat room, cooperationjackson.org. Right now in 2019, Black Power is still alive. Look at this, building solidarity economy in Jackson, Mississippi. Cooperation Jackson participating in Repaired Nation Cooperative Conference in Ghana. Look at this, the growth of the global CLT movement, right in Mississippi, family. So we're taking over. This is going on now in 2019. So Black Power, family, isn't dead. Black Power is still alive, family. So I'm getting ready to end sign that. I got like 3 more slides. Marcus Garvey says this. He said, there is no height to which you cannot climb without the active intelligence of your own mind. Mind creates. And as much as we desire in nature, we can have through the creation of our own minds. And today, being scientifically the weaker race, you shall treat others only as they treat you. But in your homes and everywhere possible, you must teach the higher development of science to your children. What did he say? You must teach the higher development of science to your children. What does the Arm and Rod Squad? I'm sorry, what does the Arm and Rod Squad teach? Scientific literacy. So even the Honorable Marcus Garvey tells us you must teach the higher development of science to your children and make sure that we have a race of scientists par excellence. So Marcus Garvey called for a race of scientists. He didn't say a race of Christians. He said a race of scientists par excellence. So you said, well, Dr. Maat, what are you doing? I'm reaching hundreds of students. I teach hundreds of students every year at a university. In the top left corner, you're looking at one of my class. Where are we sitting? In a lab. Look at all of the equipment around us, family. This is one of my students right here. He's taking a selfie with me and some of my other students in the lab. Look to the top right, family. This is another one of my students taking a selfie with all of my other, this is a class of 47. Over here is like a class of 25. This is a class of 47 students. Notice, family, that the majority of them are Black. You got one white boy right here, but let's go to the right. You got one Chinese guy right here, but everybody is Black. And you see me right there, family, in the back. Look down the bottom, family. You see a student taking a selfie with me. So what am I doing? I'm cultivating a generation of scientists. Do me a favor, Sinetta. Go ahead and play that video. Sinetta.
My name is Michael Lewis, and I'm a current student in Dr. Bailey's Electric Circuits course. Our final design project has been to create a temperature monitoring system using resistors, thermistors, diodes, and op-amps. As you can see here, here's our circuit. It's designed to sense our ambient temperature, and when our temperature is normal or around room temperature, a green LED will emit light. And upon the temperature rising, which is being sensed by a thermistor here, our red LED will emit light, as well as our buzzer will emit sound. And upon the temperature going back down again below our threshold, which is right around room temperature, the thermistor will sense it, and our green LED will emit light once more, and these two alarms here will not receive power. So we can demo this really easily by just turning on our 15-volt source here. We have a fan that's simulating like a computer that's constantly cooling the system. And then we can turn on power to the circuit here by turning this switch. And you can see we have a green LED denoting a nice room temperature in our thermistor. Now we'll heat up our thermistor with a heat gun. And you'll see the red LED is emitting light and our buzzer is sounding, which we can turn down with a nice little volume knob, which we implemented with a potentiometer. And turn it back up if we want, turn it back down. And here's our circuit. And if we want to cool this back down again, apply our fan. Wait a little bit of time. And we should see the green light come right back on. And our red LED powers off, and our green light's back on, indicating a nice room temperature. Thank you.
All right, Sinetta, thank you for playing that video. And I mean, I had a lot of other videos I could show, but I know, we pressed for time. Family, join me and Sister Alima. We had the Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club. We meet every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our next book is going to be called, the next book we're reading is Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson. So that's going to be the next book. Family, right on my channel, Dr. Oya Edwa Maat. Study with us, family, the Resurgence of the African Mind. I'm going to get with Sister Alima to see when we're going to start it up. Family, just look for my Facebook post. I don't know if anyone, guys, the moderators, please put a link to my Facebook page, Dr. Oyama. I put that in the link
Hey,
for
Dr.
folks.
Maat,
Yes, sir.
Pastor Bennett want to know if he could call in and ask you a question.
Nope, I didn't get to call in when he asked the question because I was unavailable. And after I finish my presentation, I'm done.
All right.
So tell him
you
he
hear
had
that,
his
Pastor?
chance.
You hear it.
Yeah, he had his chance. So anyway, study with us. The Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club. We meet on Sundays. Also, family, get the Meltrek program for your children. My family, we produce the Meltrek program. Again, Mel is short for melanin. Trek means journey. So we're taking you on a journey to understand and to learn about and to explore the history, culture, and achievements of melanated people. We have 2 films available, family. Episode 1 is entitled Exploring Ancient Africa. The objective of episode 1 is to teach our children that our history does not begin with slavery. So we take children on a journey back in time to learn about the ancient African civilizations. We also have Meltrek episode 2, Exploring the Pre-Columbian Americas, where we take children back in time to learn about the indigenous culture in the Americas. We have storybooks, coloring books, and etc. available. So Pastor, you said, well, what are you doing, Dr. Maat? I'm in the classroom teaching at universities. I have a book club. I have a program that's being currently used in 30 states, 10 countries. And a matter of fact, we took Meltrek to Ghana. To the left, you're seeing we were in one school. I think this was called the Trinity Academy in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana. And then we took it to Cape Coast. Cape Coast had the Nkrumah Academy in Cape Coast. And then down the bottom, we were in Garveytown. So we took Meltrek on over to Ghana and presented it at 3 schools over there. So the whole purpose of Meltrek, family, is to encourage the positive development of self. And what I mean by self, I'm talking about the self-identity, self-concept, and self-esteem. So that is the whole purpose of Meltrek, for us to know who we are, family, to regain our African consciousness, family. All right, so Pastor, you put up this 7-point plan at the end of your presentation, and you said that you had this plan: spiritual health, family, right, mental health, economics, physical health, education, and social justice. But I just want to show you, Pastor, you said that your foundation was spiritual health. We will not be physically free until we are spiritually or mentally free, Pastor. So what I'm asking you to do, Pastor, is to stand Kofa, come home, Pastor. Stop being used as a tool of racism and white supremacy, Pastor. Come home. That's all I'm asking you to do, family. I mean, it's not family, but Pastor Bennett, come home, Sankofa. Regain your African consciousness. Regain your African consciousness, Pastor. Stop being a tool for racism, white supremacy. Stop being the 2019 Philip Kwaku. Philip Kwaku, when I was over in Ghana, I went to the dungeons in Cape Coast. And Philip Kwaku was a West African that the British used to convert other West Africans to Christianity. And so when he returned to the village, or when he died, actually, the people didn't want him to be buried in the village. So they end up having to bury Philip Kwaku in the royal court in the dungeons, because the people were so ashamed at what he was doing, and he was converting people to Christianity. So Pastor, stop being the 2019 Philip Kwaku. Sankofa, come home. Come home. That's the end of my presentation, family. Thank you for listening.
You can't handle the truth.
All right, Dr. Maat. Very powerful. That is going to be a hard one for the pastor to get through. I don't even know why you did this. They may be waiting for you when you get outside, Dr. Maat. You caught a body live on TV. This is crazy.
You know
Doctor,
what?
this is crazy. You caught a body live on TV, a pastor's body. So you know they're going to be watching. They're going to be waiting for you out there. Just be careful, man.
Don't start nothing.
You know what's not. You know what's not.
So we're going to end the presentation. We're going to end the show. I know Pastor Bennett said he would like to call in when Dr. Maat get off, and I can't allow that to go down because that still would be messed up on her video. This is her video, brother, and that's it. So Dr. Maat said no calling in. I can't allow you to call in, brother, on the video.
Well, you know, we called him. Remember we called him and we tried to have a conversation, and he didn't want to get on and all of that. So now that I'm banging on him, now he, you know, well, not banging, but responding to his video. Now he wants to call in. You could have been a part of this presentation. We called you a few days ago, and you got mad and you hung up because you felt like I was cutting you off, and so you hung up and you got out of there. So now you want to call in. Now I don't want to speak to you.
Out of there?
Now I don't want to speak to you.
Okay, so family, let me let y'all know what's going on. I got Brother Sanchez going up against another brother. This is going to be one y'all don't want to miss. Coming up next week, this is a heavyweight battle right here. Brother Sanchez is going up against another brother, and the topic is this debate is that I believe, this is Sanchez talking, this debate is that I believe that melanin has nothing to do with our greatness, but the opponent is saying, but he believes melanin is the God gene and explain why blacks are more athletic. That will be epic, family. Y'all don't want to miss that battle. That is coming up next week. Brother Sanchez going to be in the building. And I'm going to let y'all know also, we have Phil Valentine coming in tomorrow. And it's going to be a free, that's what I said, the magical word is free lecture. Whoa, man. Let me see if I can get this brother on the line so he could tell us exactly where this is going to be, Dr. Maat. This is very important. Oh, Doctor, you left?
No, I'm here.
I thought you froze for a minute. You look like you froze on me.
Yeah, it does look frozen a little bit. But
no, you're not frozen.
I was just looking at the comments. Bring yourself on the screen, Sonetta. You got me on the screen.
All right,
I don't want to be on the screen. Sonetta, get me off the big screen. All right, I asked like 3 times.
Oh, come on. All right, let me get you off the screen. I see you like, get me off of this. Get me out of here.
I done took my head down and everything. I'm trying to relax now. And I was, we were going to war, so I had my hair all pent up like this.
It's beautiful, man. People want to see the beauty sometime.
Thank you.
You know?
You know what?
Okay. There we go, right there. Let me get mine up in there because I wanted to let you shine that light. I didn't want to be in your way.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be in your way. Oh, man, I'm trying to call his brother, and he ain't picking up. But there's going to be a free lecture with Phil Valentine coming into Harlem tomorrow. It's going to be powerful.
Brother Morpheus asked me if I would marry him. Tell him I'll marry him today. Ask him if he's ready.
He hear you. He hear you.
Oh, he hears me? All right.
Okay, so the brother ain't there. All right, so Dr. I thank you. I'm out of here. I got a few things to do. I did two lectures. I ain't never do that in a minute. 2 back-to-back joints. That was powerful. Both of them were scholarly, too. So I'm going to let you know, Pastor Bennett is probably in the laboratory right now working up something to see what he can do.
Hey, look, he can be in the lab all he want. I'm not going to keep on responding to Pastor Bennett because as you can see, Sonetta, presentations like this take a lot of time and I'm busy. So it's no disrespect to him. He can respond. He can do a video. But I don't have time to keep going back and forth with Pastor Bennett. What I would rather do instead of going back and forth on YouTube is hooking up with my brother and building something. Because that's what it's really about. We just do this for fun, Sonetta. We go back and forth and debate different things and, and stuff like that. But it's really about building. On the line that want to say Pastor what's up. Bennett,
I got somebody that want to say what's up to you right quick.
You can't handle the truth.
My brother Garfield, man. Oh man, there's all type of blood flying through my computer. I gotta buy a whole new computer because of you, man. Oh man, dang. I don't know what just happened.
You know what, Garfield? Don't start. Don't make me blush.
Man, what the hell just happened, bro? man, Dr. Meyer, you are a master, man. You're a master teacher, man.
See,
And
this
let me
is how
tell
they
you-
do. Pastor Bennett wrote in the
Oh,
text.
man.
See, this is how they do.
Oh, man.
Hey, Pastor, hey.
Bennett, if you want,
What did he
Pastor Bennett,
say?
I'll go live. You can jump on my channel next. Don't worry about it. I'll put you on. You know what, Pastor Bennett? I'm gonna go live right after.
Yeah, that was getting ready to
We're gonna
say.
talk about this. This was a slaughter, brother. This was a slaughter, man. Oh man. And truth story, and I smell a rat. That's all I'm gonna say to you right now.
Nah, you gotta let Pastor soak in this for a minute, man. Don't let him off the hook that quick, Garfield, man. Let him sweat a little bit, man.
But let me say this to Pastor Bennett and to Dr. Mayat. The discussion is needed.
Right.
Discussion is needed because a lot of people don't know the both sides. I mean, Truth Story been talking about this. We've been debating about this for 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Back and forth. Because we like, the church ain't did nothing. And then we said, okay, yeah, but the church helps with this, that, and that. But what did the people do before the church? Which is the hidden history that we're not talking about. So I appreciate the sister putting out this information eloquently.
Right.
Let me use that word. Eloquently. Not shouting, not preaching, but in an eloquent way that we all could understand. Everybody loves Dr. Mayat, man. So whether you're a Christian, Jew, agnostic, let me tell you something, man. You are basically family. You just put this to rest. There don't need to be a response by pastor. There don't need to be nothing after this. This is it. You just close the door. He said what he had to say. You responded. This is not no rap battle. This is a doctor right here. You better put some.
Pastor
Right,
Bennett
that's
is
what I
not
was
trying to
saying,
hear
Garfield.
that shit, Garfield.
You better put some respect on it.
Pastor Bennett is not trying to hear that, boy.
You know what? I'm gonna do an after show. I'm not gonna let him respond. I'm gonna do an after show. Just to talk. We're gonna do an after show for 30 minutes, man. Let's do an after show on Dagger Squad right now. We're gonna talk about.
But
this.
yo, Garfield, do you remember when I told Pastor Bennett last week? I said, Pastor, please, it'll be better for you. Do not let your information out yet. Don't let it out. Oh, no, brother, it's all right. I got more firepower. I got this. I'm like, yo, bro, if you let it out, people see what you got. They can easy, come at you. But he insisted. So this is the repercussions of those who don't listen to the king of this shit, man. I know what I be talking about, man. You know?
You're a veteran.
You don't listen.
You're a veteran.
Then, I'm a veteran at this
Yeah,
shit,
and
brother.
Garfield,
By the way,
and Garfield, I'm at a point.
man, with Pastor Bennett.
Hey, Garfield, can you guys hear
I want
me?
you to do it on your channel instead of mine. It would
Garf,
be
can you
I
hear
didn't
me?
talk to Pastor Bennett about it yet, but it'd be a good debate about salvation in the Old Testament.
Sinetta, can Garfield hear me?
salvation in the New
No,
Testament.
Garfield can't hear you. But anyway, I got to go, Garfield. I got to go, Dr. Maat.
Oh,
I'm
And
gonna go live right now, son.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
The Dagger Squad. We're gonna do an after show.
all right,
hey,
peace,
hold up,
brother.
Sinetta, but
Peace.
before we go, before we go, hey, Sinetta,
Yes. Go ahead.
before we go, Sinetta, I definitely want to acknowledge MBK. I want to acknowledge Big MBK. Shout out to brother Rob Bourne. I want brothers and sisters to check out his presentations. He has a lot of videos on YouTube. MBK have been looking at this stuff for years. They've been studying the benevolent societies, the West African secret societies, the AME Church. They've been studying basically the history of the free Black community for years. And so, family, please subscribe to MBK on YouTube. Check out their videos. In fact, before I even fired my shot at the pastor, I had to run things through MBK. They've been
Hold on
looking
for
at
1
this
minute.
stuff for years, and they really are the experts on that.
Sister Kaba, I made you a moderator. So can you please go and grab the link so you can throw NBK link up on the chat room? She's the only one I see that's in the NBK family right now. Sister Kaba, you are now a moderator. Can you please throw the link up inside of this chat? I appreciate that. I will appreciate that, my sister. Go on NBK channel, grab that link, and throw it up in here. Let me let you know. What do y'all think about Sister Michi X? Michi X, y'all. What do y'all think about Sister Michi X? Because remember, she's a former pastor. Do you think she would beat up Pastor Bennett? because you know I told Bennett, me and Bennett had a talk earlier.
Yep.
And Sister Michi X is militant as hell, you know? So I don't know. And her
Yes, she
being
is.
a former pastor, she used to be a minister, a pastor. Pastor Bennett, I don't think would be able to deal with no Michi X, boy. Because she see all this stuff that's going on. There go the link right there. Sister Kaba threw the link up in the chat. Click on that link. Let's get it in there. Easy to find the page. Subscribe to NBK Black Knowledge. New Black Knowledge. Going in, y'all. All right, Dr. Ma, go ahead. Close us out. Take us home, baby. You got the last word. Doctor?
All right, so family, I just hope that I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I just hope that okay, yeah, I hear you, Sanetta. But family, I just hope that you guys learned a valuable lesson in this, man. It's always two sides to a story. I remember my mother used to say there are three sides to a story. Is your side, her side, or his side in the truth, right? And so Pastor Bennett, he gave his side, I gave my side. And so all I'm asking, family, is for you to speak the truth. And to do your due diligence, to learn the full story of our ancestors. Don't just take what I say or what Pastor Bennett says. Go do your due diligence. Go do your own research. And that's what this thing is about. So, Sanetta, I want to thank you again for providing the community with a forum to have these conversations. Please join us, family, again. The Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club. Please get the Meltrek program for your children. In fact, Pastor Bennett, I think that you should get it and you should watch it. And I'm not being smart at all, but I do think that you should get the Meltrek program and watch it so that you can learn about the history of our ancestors through our lenses. So with that said, Sanetta, I want to tell everyone, thank you for tuning in. I love you all, even including my haters. I was looking at some of the comments and some people were kind of hating. That's what we say, hating on me. But it's all good. I love all of you.
How can somebody hate on Dr. Maat? How could they hate on you with the knowledge you? Come on, man. So you know there's something wrong with them, not you, Dr. Maat. I want to let that be known. It got to be something wrong with them, not you, sister.
Absolutely, Si. So, just you heard my side, you heard his side. Go ahead and seek the truth for yourself, family. And I guess until we meet again, Si.
All right, we out of here. Thank you, Queen. Peace. Black Power. We out.
Peace.
When you're doubting that bullshit that you've been told, and you need that info. Sanetta TV, Sanetta TV. Tune in to consciousness and watch the lies fold. Then you can let the truth flow. On Sanetta TV, Sanetta TV. When you feel that melanin about to explode, like you feel the wind blow. It's Sanetta TV, Sanetta TV. I know you got the truth, but you can get more, so you continue to grow. Sanetta